typical Class A office building, is about 25,000 square feet for floor plate. We would love to build it there for the fit, it just doesn't. The creek's right there. It just literally does not fit there.
Okay. Anyone else have any other questions?
Actually, I have a question. You just asked if they took the building somewhere else. Can you show us on that map where you were just referencing?
You got a pointer here?
I'm doing it right now. Can you see the pointer? It's
Not everybody can.
So the question was, why can't they build the 4-story building there instead of where they plan to? Is that your question?
That was the question.
And they said it would be inconvenient to find renters.
No.
Is that the
No.
answer?
No.
No.
Okay.
Could you repeat what it is?
A Class A office building literally just does not fit on that site.
Why?
It has to be a larger floor plate, it has to be wider, and we're struck by we're constrained by the creek on one side, and then, the road to get between the two buildings, it just doesn't fit. We
And the buildings connect?
And
They
they-
have a creek to look at then?
That's our backyard.
no.
The existing building it's gonna be torn down, that's.
Oh, so there's a building coming down?
The existing, what we call the housing building is coming down, yes.
Okay, Mr. Beast, did you have any? Does the applicant have any additional comments that they wanted to make with regard to anything that came up this evening?
Yeah, there's a lot of comments and, I've jotted some notes and, tried to address some of the concerns. Number one, what's in it for, the neighbors is, you have to have a balance between like Sycamore Township and Kenwood. You have to have some businesses, and you have to have some residents, and, we think we're respecting, the fact that it is a residential structure, and we're offering almost 2 acres of green space right there. We heard when we built the Tri-Health building that along Cooperville Road.
Where?
So that's, what we had proposed is that all green space with, mounds and trees and a trail to get from Sycamore, or from Cooperville Road over to Kenwood Town Center.
But that's already an existing buffer zone.
Correct, and we would propose that we keep it mostly buffer zone. What we're asking for is basically 75
But
feet
I
apart.
think it's already been ruled that that has to be a buffer zone, correct?
No, it is a residential, if we don't do anything right now, as, we have the right to go build on our double zone property.
No, you don't.
We have the right to go build, buildings, that fit into the existing, zoning, classifications and such.
But from the existing that the gentleman talked about, there is a buffer zone that's already been, put into the covenants.
Yes, and we would propose moving that.
I think the difference is, the current buffer is only 30 feet, we're suggesting 163 feet.
Right.
That's a significant difference.
We have the ability to go build. If I could continue, what we have proposed here is the office building is currently on the footprint of the double O zone property. So what we're looking for is where is the parking issue? So that's what we're looking for, is basically 75 feet of the parking would encroach on the residential and the buffer zone. We'd like to make the whole thing a buffer zone.
We don't have a parking lot there.
We currently do not have a
That's
parking lot.
right.
That is
We don't.
correct. That's what we're here asking for tonight.
That's right.
Yes.
So if.
For how many
if-
cars?
No, wait. So you don't have that.
Correct.
So what you're saying is the same thing as, you don't have what you need
That is
to do
correct.
what you wanna do.
That's what we're asking for, correct?
So, it's like saying you wanna build a 10-story building, but you wanna put in a parking lot, but you can't because you don't have that.
We don't have the parking for it. We have the option of either shrinking the building, or we could build a bigger parking garage. Those are our two options, or we could get this variance right here. What we're offering with this, not variance, but this rezoning, what we're offering in exchange for that, we don't have, I know that, that's why we're here tonight. What we're offering in exchange for that is, I think it's 1.8 acres, and we would extensively landscape it. We would work with, the neighborhood wanted to pick up, and have somebody, work with us to say, this is how we want to
Well,
landscape it.
but you have a piece of property that you want to put something that's not,
Legal.
it can't, I mean, you're
But that's why
proposing
we're asking for a
something,
zone change.
but,
So why not build a bigger parking garage then,
but
underneath the
I
building?
don't understand why you would even try to do something that, I mean, then buy out everybody. Because you're trying to do something in a residential neighborhood that doesn't, you don't have that ability to do. You bought something that you don't have the ability to do what you wanna do. I don't get that.
So, the reason we're here, we're asking for,
Please.
we're
Mr.
asking for
Kavicki, go ahead.
rezoning on a portion of this property to help us to park this building. If we don't do that, gentleman back here said he wants to put a church there. We've had somebody else call and said they want to put a church there. We could put residential there. We don't know what the future holds for it at this time. What we're proposing is we built the office building on the current 00 zone property, and we encourage approximately 75 feet for our parking into the residential. And we would like,
Into those who live right there, okay?
yes, but we already have the right to go build on that site.
I totally get you. I
Okay.
get it.
So-
But you can't put parking there.
We're asking for that,
I
We could use,
understand.
we could do it in a parking garage.
like we want.
And you can
No,
put
no,
it in a
Michael,
parking garage.
what I think you're not making clear is that we have the ability to park, it's just more expensive to do. But if you allow us to go put
Right.
surface parking, if you allow us to put surface parking on the residential traffic,
Lights.
if you allow us to put it, we will berm it, we will give green space, and we will
But
give.
that doesn't do it.
It does, it does.
It does.
No, hold it. We're not gonna get into this
No,
inner
you don't want to do that.
squabble. Mr. Kavicki, if you got some points to make, please make them.
Yes, when we built the original five-house buildings, we, had the same concerns, and, I'm from this area, I went to Indian High School, my kids went to Indian High School. It's not in my interest to go, do some project that's going to be detrimental to the neighborhood. We own other properties, we wanna continue to own this property, and to have lighted, houses back there, that we, do some detrimental thing that you guys, have lighted houses out there, it doesn't help us. We're not interested in that, that's not,
I'm not either,
okay.
at all.
Currently you have that, you said that you've got the neighbors around you, and I'm saying that if you have a class A project, that improves property values, it does not diminish.
We are not gonna get into a debate about this. Mr. Kavicki, if you got some points to make, please make them.
At the end of the day, what we're trying to determine here is what's the best use of this piece of property right here? It is on the highway. It does,
It's not on the highway. It is not.
when we're building the building, it is physically on the highway. It does not have, for most of it, it does not.
Build your building.
It does not have sound walls. It's not going to be a high-end residential neighborhood right there. It's just not, it's not feasible.
Excuse me.
On the highway, we are not gonna be able to sell $800–900 million houses on the highway.
Understood.
Okay?
Understood.
So what's the best use of this piece of property? And what we're proposing is that, we have an office building with a lot of green space. And, we built a walking trail to make Kenwood, a more walkable community. That's what we've offered to the neighbors. Somebody else has asked, why don't we sit down, and why don't we, work with, the neighbors? And we've tried that. We've done 25 different iterations. We came to an agreement with 3 or 4 of the members, and then one came back and blew the deal up. So we've tried to work with the neighbors. We will continue to try to work with the neighbors. but, you know, it's not a high-end residential site. So if it doesn't get zoned,
But what you don't understand is that these are our homes.
I
I
understand
get it,
it.
they're not $1 million homes, but they're our homes.
I understand that, and
And so to us, it doesn't matter what,
Ms. Klein, let Mr. Kubicki finish his comments.
so, you know, what's in it for the township? It is an economic development project. It brings taxes and revenue, and, I mean, that's what's in it for the neighbors. I mean, you know, yes, it's a change, and, you know, I don't believe it's gonna diminish the property values, but, you know, it is important to Kenwood. One of the most important things, you know, to keep your property values up is the school districts. And, you know, right now, the schools spend $17,000 per year per student. And, you know, Heighton
No,
right
they
now
don't.
pays an average of $6,000 a year in taxes, on which about $3,000 goes to the schools. Over 30 years, you'll pay $30,000 of your taxes will go to the schools, and yet it costs $225,000 over a 13-year period. That's commercial development that allows that to happen. It's not, you know, it's not residential that are paying all the bills.
We got them all.
that is why, because our schools are good, that is why we're willing to buy in those areas, invest in our homes over a long period, and intend to keep the value of those homes. Because they're in a good school district, because otherwise, we wouldn't invest in our homes if we felt like someone was gonna come in.
Mr. Kubicki, do you have any
Yes.
further comments?
That's all. If anyone has any questions, you know, we're here to answer them.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
One more question. May I make a comment?
No, ma'am, we
Mr.
closed the
Kubicki.
comments. I asked for comments and we finished those.
But I have a rebuttal to what Mr. Kubicki said.
Ma'am, we are finished with that. Mr. Mees?
So will there be an open house or anything further that we can say it to them the next time?
I don't know what's going to happen yet in this meeting, much
Okay.
less what's going to happen.
So my opinion cannot be shared.
And you had your opportunity and you
I
spoke.
did.
And you did.
And now he
And now
said
we're,
something
and now we're
else.
finished and we're moving on with the meeting. Mr. Mees, do you have any comments?
Do we need to make a motion first?
Yes.
I move we consider case 2019-08Z and case 2019-09NA.
Any, second by Ms. Flanagan. Mr. Mees, any additional comments?
These are always the tough cases where there's an interface of commercial development and residential development, and these are always the tough ones. I know folks on both sides of the issue here, and so I know I'm gonna walk away this evening making somebody upset. Personally, I can understand the passion of the neighborhoods, the neighbors, and as I keep coming back to this, for myself, I keep looking, if this was right across the street from my neighborhood, how would I feel? And I would probably share the opinion of most of the residents who have spoken tonight. I think it's just too big, too close, with too many downsides. So I'm gonna have trouble with it.
No more applause. Just hearing comments. Mr. Roos?
I pretty much the same comment to make, basically that the berm issue and the size of that building is massive. I don't think there's any way possible to screen that thing that the neighbors wouldn't see it. I wouldn't personally want to live by it, you know, if I had bought a piece of property, I'd be upset at this kind of a structure being put up. So I have no problem with that.
Ms. Flanagan?
I do think the development has benefits to our community, beyond just taxes and revenue. In fact, I think some of the services provide employment. I'm getting old, so one of these days I'm gonna need the medical care too. But I am concerned about the legal issues that were raised. I don't really know if we've resolved that, and that's a concern with the easements and the right-of-way there. Part of this property, they have the right to build that. Despite some of the comments made here tonight, we do try to work for all of the community, and that involves developers, it involves the citizens and residents, and it's a balancing act always. Change is part of what zoning boards do, so sometimes change is away from residents and it is into offices, and that's something I think everyone here really recognizes. But I am hearing, even from the developers, that there might be some compromises that could be made yet that might take us closer to getting to a place where both sides would benefit and the distress from both communities would be lessened with some additional benefit here. That's my thoughts.
Mr. Barrett?
Bill, I think you opened up the discussion on the right track with this. These edge developments are very difficult, and the reference to the land use plan is something that we try to predict and foresee potential changes long term, and it's correct that we did not anticipate any development going further north on there. When this case did come in the last time for the trial building, I know we looked long and hard at how that impacted the neighborhood, and I think we may have been right on the edge. I was personally at the time of what we could do with this one, but what I'm seeing tonight is I think the boundary is being pushed a little bit beyond what I'm comfortable with, I was comfortable with in last time around 2014. The rezoning of the residential parcels, I think, is probably the biggest challenge initially, is that we want to maintain residential along there. Those lots probably need to be deeper in order to buffer anything that happens to the south, including the existing building. And then if there was additional office development going on the currently zoned parcel, I'm not in favor of putting 4 stories on top of a higher elevation than the existing building and that much closer to Kugler Mill. I would be welcome alternative plans, I guess, to see how we could put additional office space in that parcel there, but I don't think this is the right first step as far as the impacts on the neighborhood.
Thank you. You know, in terms of the application, we heard a lot of things tonight about what the applicant might propose to do, but that is really not part of the application yet. And Mr. Meese was correct. We oftentimes see larger commercial developments coming up, abutting against residential properties. I think from a residential standpoint, you have to understand that sometimes times change, the conditions change, other developments take place that make it maybe more desirable to develop the property in a certain way that wasn't envisioned 5 years ago or 10 years ago or 20 years ago. Different things happen. I would echo the sentiment that I think that the new proposed office structure is too tall for the property, but I sincerely believe that the owner of the property, the applicant, could find a different way to configure the building to make it less high but get the same square footage and the same Class A designation for the property. I think the applicant could come up with a plan for doing something buffering the property along Kugler Mill that makes the view from Kugler Mill and the residents to the other side of Kugler Mill see much less of the building than they see right now. If they were to put an 8 to 10 foot berm in there and put plantings above that, they effectively would screen property 30 feet tall right at Kugler Mill. I mean, the neighborhood that I live in has a berm that was built up around a residential subdivision. But there are commercial buildings across the street. But the berm, I think the berm was more to protect the people in the residential neighborhood from seeing the commercial than vice versa. But the berm, if you go down the road, you don't see any housing structure, anything behind that berm. I mean, it looks like, and I think the same thing could happen here, but it's not part of what we have before us tonight. But I do think that the property owner could find a way to develop the property to get the same bang for the buck out of putting a office building there, to take down the existing structure, to build a new garage, perhaps building the garage one floor deeper, putting 2 levels of parking below the office building. There are ways to get the same amount of parking without pushing the parking back. Maybe you still want the parking, you know, and maybe if you put the berm in and you've got somebody who is designing it to say, here's what you would see with a 10-foot berm and trees planted on the top of it. Here's what you would see from the other side of Cougar Mill when you're looking at that kind of berm and that kind of landscaping plan, how it cuts down on what you're seeing in terms of a commercial structure that's built upon the property. You know, you can't just say, well, you know, we have a residential neighborhood and there shouldn't be any further commercial development. Things do change. Commercial buildings, commercial developments, they add greatly to the school districts. Mr. Kubicki started to talk about, you know, the taxes that are generated by residential properties as opposed to commercial developments. You get businesses, you get commercial developments, you get more tax revenue that's flowing because the primary source of funding our schools is from property taxes. If you've got properties that are worth more, that are generating more in taxes, you've got more taxes flowing into your schools. The better schools you have, it increases the value of every residential property. And you've got to keep that in mind. I know that, again, a personal reference, but when I bought my house, I had 50 acres of woods behind my house. I loved it. I didn't own all 50 acres. I only owned a couple acres. But, over time, that 50 acres disappeared because somebody put in a subdivision. I didn't particularly like it, but, that happened.
Who was the subdivision?
What it also did is it opened me up to the highway that was beyond that. So things change, times change. I think you've got to be open to the possibility of a development that is compatible with the land, is compatible with what was developed there before. I just think that the application that we're presented tonight is not the right development for that property. Again, no flaws. So, with that, if there are no other comments, Mr. Meeks, if you would take the roll with regard to the motion that was made.
Ms. Flanagan? Mr. Barrett? Mr. Friedman?
No.
Mr. Rude?